In the summer of 2003, Cartoon Network premiered Teen Titans, a lively, spry superhero cartoon based on the DC comic book series of the same name. Pretty much everyone in my middle school loved its unique blend of Western sensibilities and an anime-inspired sense of humor, and the show ran for 5 seasons over the next 3 years. In 2013, 7 years after the end of the show, Cartoon Network premiered a similarly titled program called Teen Titans Go!, a denser, wackier short-form series starring the same characters as the original show with a much stronger emphasis on comedy. But I'm not here to do a video about Teen Titans Go! I'm here because the My Little Pony franchise would adopt this formula themselves a few years later, putting their own spin on the idea of a denser, wackier short-form series starring core characters with a stronger focus on humor. You know the one. It's fascinating to me that despite the relatively uncommon practice of repackaging familiar characters into a more short-form comedic series, the My Little Pony franchise got 2 attempts at this kind of spin-off, to the point that when Tell Your Tale was announced in February of 2022, many viewers made obvious connections to Pony Life from 2020. Consider the next few minutes a sort of 2 cakes situation. I'm not trying to pit these shows against each other, I just think it's wild that we got 2 of them. Even if you're not a big fan of Pony Life or the associated Gen 5 show, it's a really fascinating thought experiment to watch a production team try to make an even faster, cuter version of an already very sweet, goofy show. But dang it, they tried with their simplified expressions, exaggerated body proportions, and their wide, toothy grins. This style is sometimes called Cal Art style, but I'm not going to use that phrase. Apart from it having been coined by the creator of Ren and Stimpy, a problematic creator in his own right, it's also used somewhat derogatorily to refer to animation that has that sort of style. And I know I'm only talking to 8% of the people watching this video right now, but you know that artists don't draw like that just to cheese you off, right? This is the kind of style that allows for simple, easy to draw models on a time crunch, while retaining most of the expressiveness of the original character models. As far as Pony Life is concerned, expressive doesn't even begin to describe this show. When I told my non-brony friend Mike about Pony Life, he basically summed up the entire premise of the show in a single sentence. You know what this cupcake needs? More sugar. The show revels in near nihilistic after-school energy where anything can happen. And because anything is possible, everything is possible. There are small through lines about getting on a cooking show and joining the Girl Scouts, but those are less coherent stories and more situations for the girls to react over. And for that, this show is exactly what it wanted to be. Just the girls vamping together while following approximately 40% of the laws of physics. They gave each of the girls a silly self-aware superpower, like exploding into confetti, falling to pieces, and summoning a fainting couch from thin air. And it lends the whole show an air of irreverence that does it a lot of good. The show even leans into the limited animation budget, with nice looking sparkly eye textures and a really cute, snappy walk cycle. I can even mostly forgive my biggest complaint about the presentation of the show. The sloppy looking backgrounds that evoke drunk coloring books with much the same carefree, almost careless attitude with which they animated Jackie Chan adventures back in the day. I don't know if the neglect in the set design area of things was done to focus on anything in particular, but both these shows feel like they were at least designed to be programs with quick turnaround times. Pony Life was originally announced in November of 2019 for a release in June of next year, but got pushed back another 5 months, possibly to deal with circumstances surrounding some kind of global catastrophe. But eventually it came out with all the fixins you'd expect from a spin-off, down to the really vibrant, surreal title cards for every segment. They really lend an air of zany, haphazard energy to the segments before you watch them, as does this absolutely killer earworm that my buddy Canvas put together a lo-fi version of for this video. It's insanely catchy, and that's terrible news for anybody within earshot of me for at least 48 hours after I watch one of these. Fast forward 2 years to February 2022 and the announcement of the YouTube series Tell Your Tale. Despite only 2 months of turnaround time between announcement and premiere, Tell Your Tale feels like the much more calculated show of the two. Your mileage may vary, but a lot of the discussion I heard about Tell Your Tale centered around it being a really well-produced show that, while still zany, felt more calculated and restrained than Pony Life ended up being. And while that was likely the intention from the get-go, I think a large portion of the reception of each series has a lot to do with framing. With Pony Life, the series was announced in a void, barely a month after Friendship is Magic had wrapped, and fans weren't really sure what to expect following the conclusion of their favorite show. Meanwhile, you have Tell Your Tale here, where a large part of the initial fanfare for this series was being shown off as part of Hasbro's Innovator Showcase conference 2 weeks ahead of schedule. Tell Your Tale smacks of being a carefully crafted flagship series to this new iteration of the My Little Pony franchise that until that point had only had a feature film to go off of. I want to be clear that that is not at all a criticism. A show that knows what it needs to be and what people expect is a great sign of a creative team that really deeply cares about making a highly crafted product. With this degree of forethought combined with the really brisk runtime, Tell Your Tale is allowed to craft really loving, timely episodes to coincide with major holidays, like Christmas, Thanksgiving, and an absolutely stellar sequence of episodes to celebrate Halloween, where the charm of the series got turned on full blast. This level of care is also the reason it's allowed to do this sort of lockstep dance with Make Your Mark in the IDW comic series when it comes to canon. Entirely different series are able to reference key plot points in one another that air same day or at least same week, giving Hasbro's whole spread of different programming this really cool sense of cohesion on top of being a really solid, funny show. Especially when you compare it to Pony Life's lack of concern with respect to canon. There's a whole episode about Pinkie fighting her brother Octavio, who was always around, just never talked about, and the show kind of expects you to shrug that off. Honestly, my only big gripe with the series is a side effect of the medium of internet videos. In an era where internet creators have access to a whole slew of metrics about how their content is doing, I noticed some really odd changes to how Tell Your Tale is presented. It started 30 episodes in when the first of the Nightmare Night episodes came attached to 5 separate episodes of the show, back to back to back to back to back. I'm almost certain that this was done to drive up watch time for such a short show, and a creative team is always going to be beholden to the format of the media they're presenting, but it extends to the videos themselves. Episodes are frequently renamed shortly after releasing to something more algorithm friendly, resulting in these really muddled word salad titles. Entire sets of episodes with a tenuous character or story beat in common get bundled together, even completely released on their own months later under a different title. I mean, Hasbro gonna Hasbro, but I'm not looking forward to the pain in the flank it's gonna be to archive this stuff for future Pony fans. I already tried once to list every piece of Pony media, and that was a nightmare in itself. All in all, these are both solid shows that I'm happy to see find their footing with parts of the fanbase. If these kinds of shows aren't for you, I'm not sure anything that I have to say is going to convince you otherwise, and that's okay. I like that there's something for everyone here, and at least the shows didn't go the full Teen Titans route and completely brick an entire broadcast schedule.